Good evening and welcome to Viewpoint. Sir David Steele took over as Governor of Gibraltar some 5 weeks ago. How is he settling in? Well, he's kindly invited us into his new home here at the Convent to discuss external affairs and the defence of Gibraltar. I also hope to ask him about the Royal Gibraltar Police, as well as history and perhaps even natural history. Your Excellency, Sir David Steele, thanks a lot for sitting down and talking to us. About a month into your new role, what are your first impressions of Gibraltar?
Oh, Jonathan, thank you first of all for coming down this morning and having this chat with me. Wow, it's been a bit of a roller coaster for the first 5 weeks that I've been here, but a delightful one. My first impressions of Gibraltar are twofold. I last came here properly in 1983, and at that time it was still developing. Gibraltar was developing. It was still a military place. I remember lots of sailors, lots of bars and lots of enjoyment late into the night, and a lot of work for the military police. And then coming off the plane only 5 weeks ago, I instantly recognised how much transformation there has been in Gibraltar in the intervening years since 1983. This is a place that has transformed itself in a relatively short period of time, is vibrant, is ambitious. The reclamation and the development of new buildings, the modernity of Gibraltar, it's hard to miss. It's everywhere. Everywhere is immaculately clean. The road structures are laid out in a perfectly acceptable way, and everywhere there's greenery, and the government's plans for more greenery are an indication of how Gibraltar is transforming itself, sitting alongside the great history that's here in Gibraltar. So I've come across a territory that is at ease with itself, is ambitious for the future, but also looks back at its past with great pride and privilege. So that's the first thing, I think. The second thing I've noticed above everything, for me personally, has been the warmth of the welcome I've received. Everywhere I have gone, from every walk of society, every denomination of faith, people have gone out of their way to say welcome to me. And I particularly remember one moment when I was out running one evening, a stupid Brit in the evening sunshine, far too hot, and I ran down to the American War Memorial, and I was in my tatty running gear, and it's only about 200 yards away, and I stopped to look at a map that is just at the bottom of the War Memorial there. Two reasons for that. One was to find my bearings, and the second one was to catch my breath after only 200 yards. And from behind me I heard, "Governor, welcome to Gibraltar." And I turned round, and it was a young lady who could be no more than 23, 24, I think of Muslim faith, and with a beaming smile. She had no reason to say that, but she just wanted to say welcome. And to me, that summed up the warmth of the welcome that I've received since I've been in Gibraltar.
I want to ask you obviously about the role of governor, because we heard you say some things of interest in the swearing-in ceremony, and you made it clear that you want to approach the role with purpose. But I heard you talk about greenery with warmth twice there, and we know about your involvement with the Woodland Trust before coming to Gibraltar. So I thought I'd ask you, firstly, what do you think of the Convent Gardens which you have on your doorstep? And if more generally you've been able to explore the Alameda Gardens or the Upper Rock Nature Reserve yet?
I have, Jonathan. On the point of the Convent Garden, amazing, amazing history. To think that this convent and its garden have been really here since the 16th century, the 1500s, when it was first became a monastery or a convent, and to have that gardens and to know that they used to, that area down there was where the first settlers really lived. and now it's transformed into this wonderful garden with trees that are ancient by any sense of the imagination, planted by emperors and kings. I mean, just walking through the garden, you have this sense of the history not only of the British time here, but even beyond that. There's one dragon tree there that is reputed to have been planted in the 1400s. I'm not sure that's absolutely correct, but it's a nice story to tell. So the gardens here are magical, and they belong to Gibraltar. And one of my aspirations in coming to Gibraltar, coming to the convent, is to open that up much more to the people of Gibraltar, to show off these wonderful gardens that are right in the centre. I believe, and I've been told, it's the largest private garden in Gibraltar, and it deserves to be shown off. And so when COVID passes and we can open the gates and allow more people into the convent, this wonderful, wonderful piece of history for Gibraltar, and the gardens, I think that will be magical. And I have managed to get out, very, very stupidly, 2 weeks ago, and stupidly in particular because I did it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when it was boiling hot. I decided to go up the Med steps, and so walked through the nature reserve and saw all the upper rock areas, and the juxtaposition of nature and this wonderful, wonderful history that permeates throughout Gibraltar. The history of not just the First and Second World Wars, but going beyond that, the Moorish history as well. That juxtaposition, the contrast between the two, is what makes Gibraltar, in my mind, such a draw for tourists. Those who love nature, those who love history, you've got it in one very compact parcel here in Gibraltar. And to me, to see the greenery that's being developed in the Commonwealth Park and the ambitious plans for more parks like it down the road there, I think it just sets off Gibraltar as a very modern and dynamic territory that is looking to preserve the environment and enhance the environment, while at the same time meeting the economic and political expectations of a vibrant and forward-looking economy.
In your swearing-in ceremony last month, the Chief Minister, Fabian Picardo, said that Gibraltar is British but different. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do. Gibraltar has its own history. It has such a cosmopolitan group of people that live here. And I think just only a few weeks ago, when I had the privilege of doing my first citizenship ceremony, and the 3 people that became British citizens were from Morocco originally. And that rich tapestry of bringing different peoples together in one place is unique in the family of the British family. I can't think of another territory within the British family that has such a cosmopolitan number of peoples that come together. So yes, it is different, but it is British. And it is interesting to think, in a way, that the British have been part of the life of Gibraltar for over 316 years. And when I think that the statue that is down in the north end of Gibraltar, which commemorates Rooke, Admiral Rooke, in the 316 years ago, that's how the British have been here for 316 years, having an influence on the way that Gibraltar has developed and fashioned itself. So I do believe that there is something ingrained in something that has fashioned Gibraltar is part British but part not British. And I think it is a wonderful, wonderful combination that has got Gibraltar to the place it is today. Very, very unique in the world, looking after itself, but enjoying this amazing partnership with a country 1,000 miles away. And it is a partnership and it is a true partnership that belongs within a family. And my role here as governor, as I said in that swearing-in speech, is to ensure that that family stays together as long as the people of Gibraltar want that family to stay together. And so I committed myself to making sure that I did nothing to upset that relationship. In fact, my job is to try and enhance that relationship even further.
So if I were to ask you what the best of Britishness is that Gibraltar should embrace and even develop further, what springs to mind?
Oh, well, I don't think it's a question of what Gibraltar should embrace. It is what Gibraltar embraces without even thinking about it. And I think that's these wonderful principles, the rule of law, a mature democracy, and most importantly of all, I think, is this tolerance of other people. And I think actually Gibraltar demonstrates that into an even greater extent nowadays than Britain can, the United Kingdom can. This ability to welcome people of all nationalities and all faiths into one community of 33,000 people, where everybody counts. And I think Britain around the world has espoused that particular characteristic: understanding, tolerance, inclusivity. Those are the principles upon which Britain sets store, and which I believe Gibraltar demonstrates beyond belief. It's an incredible way that Gibraltar has taken just adopted that principle and demonstrated in the community life that exists in Gibraltar.
To what extent do you think those principles that you've just spoken about are being tested by the ongoing Brexit process?
I mean, Brexit is a matter of redefining a nation's sovereignty. The United Kingdom voted to take back control of its laws and its way of life to a degree. And Gibraltar didn't vote that way. It voted for a much closer relationship with the European Union than the United Kingdom was prepared to accept in 2020, today, or when the vote happened a few years ago. But the fundamental principles that I've talked about, tolerance, the rule of law, freedom of speech, mature democracy, doesn't change because of Brexit. Brexit is changing an economic and political relationship, not a social relationship. There is no doubt the United Kingdom wants to stay so very close to the countries of Europe in every other respect. We are Europeans in the same way that Gibraltar is part of the European continent. It's just that the United Kingdom wanted to take back greater control of the way that it delivered its politics and in its economics. And I don't think it changes one iota the principles of which I've just spoken.
We're entreated to work together. Additionally, it's also worth remembering that Section 49 of the current Constitution provides that the Governor will keep the Chief Minister fully informed of the general conduct of those matters for which you are responsible. And Section 52 provides that the Governor and the Chief Minister, that is to say, you and me, at least for now, shall confer on a regular basis, and the Chief Minister shall brief and keep the Governor informed about the policies of the government and the public affairs of Gibraltar. We are clearly about to get to know each other much better. I, for one, very much look forward to it, and the work that we will no doubt be able to do together in the public interest of Gibraltar.
At the swearing-in ceremony, the Chief Minister suggested that Brexit may make some constitutional reform inevitable for Gibraltar. Maybe you can speak to us about that, but also his hope that it might also be a time of great opportunity for Gibraltar, which perhaps contrasts a little with some of the feelings of unrest that some in Gibraltar might have by virtue of the fact that they wanted to remain a part of the European Union and were not going to, and that they might look at that sort of unknown future with some trepidation.
Well, I think you asked two questions, Jonathan, and the first being, of course, on constitutional reform. I think that there will have to be some constitutional review simply because the Constitution of 2006 talks quite a lot about the European Union. So there will have to be some review of those parts of the Constitution that talk about the European Union when we're not part of the European Union. But I know that the Chief Minister has ambitions to look at the Constitution. In 2006, the people of Gibraltar voted very strongly in a referendum in favour of the Constitution. And the Constitution sets down a blueprint for a very modern and forward-looking relationship between the United Kingdom and Gibraltar, where Gibraltar assumes a great deal of self-governance, but leaving some rather larger issues to its rather larger partner in world affairs. And that has worked admirably since 2006. The Brexit negotiations have opened up an avenue for looking at how Gibraltar now deals perhaps a little bit more with negotiations across its borders. And what we've seen in the signing of the 4 MoUs with Spain in the withdrawal process has been an indication of how Gibraltar can develop its international being, especially in discussions across the border with Spain. And those areas may need to be looked at in the future and how we develop that. But matters like defence, internal security, and of course foreign policy on the wider stage, I think these are huge matters where the United Kingdom is equipped very admirably to fight for Gibraltar's cause in a way that Gibraltar might not be able to fight on its own. Fight's too strong a word, but actually display the benefits for Gibraltar. And I think in a forward-looking and a mature democracy, we will have to look at the Constitution again, maybe not now, but we'll learn on the back of the Brexit negotiations what needs to change. This is a wonderful opportunity. Brexit has opened up the door for Gibraltar to seize more opportunities, both in the Commonwealth and in the wider world, for economic benefit. And negotiations are continuing in Brussels and elsewhere to see how, as the United Kingdom moves out of the EU structure, along with Gibraltar, how Gibraltar can benefit from those change of circumstances. And I honestly believe that there will be huge benefits to Gibraltar in a slightly different arrangement with the European Union that exists at the moment.
Again, if I refer back to the swearing-in ceremony, there was a reference by the Chief Minister to the joint sovereignty episode of 2002, and I thought I'd like to ask you whether you get the sense that that episode, which Fabian Picardo referred to as disgraceful.
I want to thank you all from the bottom of my own heart, especially those of you that work for the Ministry of Defence.
Whether that episode has left a lingering sense of, albeit small, but distrust between the two partners who have said both that there is a need to work together and we want to be allies of great ambition. But is there a lingering distrust between Gibraltar and the UK?
I don't think so. It was a period in history when things were changing quite dramatically, and I think, Jonathan, we've moved on from what I've seen arriving in Gibraltar. The relationship with the United Kingdom could not be stronger, and I don't think that there is any lingering concern about that. And as I said in my swearing-in speech, and I reiterated Her Majesty's government policy, the so-called double lock, that the Her Majesty's government will not enter into negotiations on the sovereignty of Gibraltar at all without the approval of the people of Gibraltar, and in fact went into enter into negotiations without having discussed it with the people of Gibraltar, the government of Gibraltar. So I think we've got a pretty firm commitment there that 2002 will never happen again.
If we look at the vote as an example, the Brexit vote, it showed us that at times what the people of Gibraltar want might be different to what the people of the UK collectively want. How do you, as the Queen's representative in Gibraltar, how do you manage any tension between what Gibraltar wants and what the UK wants? Should they be different?
Well, I don't think it's for me, Jonathan, to manage that tension. I think this is very much a political and economic question for the people of Gibraltar. What I've seen since I've been here is a huge acceptance that the people of the United Kingdom family voted to leave the European Union. And all that I have seen is a Chief Minister and a government that has accepted that will, recognised that it hasn't been completely in accordance with the will of the people of Gibraltar, but together with the United Kingdom, we're going to take every possible opportunity we can from this decision for the benefit of the people of Gibraltar. And I honestly believe that from what I've seen so far in my 5 weeks here, that so many opportunities have arisen from that decision that the benefit to Gibraltar will be there as long as we can seize the opportunities. And we have a hugely dynamic and forward-looking Chief Minister, together with his Deputy Chief Minister and the government, supported by Parliament, that is going to seize those opportunities. And I think it goes back, Jonathan, to what I said right at the start of our discussions. Gibraltar doesn't stand still. Gibraltar is dynamic, ambitious for the future, and when it sees a problem, it looks for the opportunity in it. And to my mind, from what I've seen so far over the last 5 or 6 weeks, that is exactly what's happening. And the Chief Minister and his government and Parliament together are seizing those opportunities. And I believe that there will be no tension. In fact, there will be a good outcome to the negotiations and deliberations. Might get rocky at times, always will get rocky when you have such difficult political judgments to take. But I believe that the outcome will be good for Gibraltar.
If I can ask you, the leader of the opposition invited you in the context of what he believed your constitutional role is, again at the swearing-in ceremony. He invited you to be a non-executive chairman of our club, with reference to constitutional advancements and changes to the role of the governor. And that seemed to contrast with what you then went on to say, which is that you wanted to be forward-looking and you, in effect, didn't want to have a ceremonial role. I mean, I'm paraphrasing there, so you'll forgive me, but you didn't want to be a figurehead, I believe is what you said. So is there a contrast there between the two sort of portrayals of the role of the governor?
No, I don't think there are, actually. And to give the leader of the opposition his due, I rather liked his description of a non-executive chairman of the board. And if I can be that interlocutor through which not just the political parties work, but also all the charities, the schools, the wider associations of Gibraltar operate, then I'd be privileged to be that. There are some executive functions that are still reserved to the governor as part of the 2006 Constitution. But at the same time, my hope is that, yes, if I can be a non-executive chairman, I think that would be the best possible place for a governor to be able to offer advice, to be able to listen, to be able to draw people together, to be able to keep the board on track, to keep it focused on the future rather than the past, I'd be privileged to hold that role. So I think the Leader of the Opposition probably got it about right.